again, I am thankful.
Resuming debate, the honourable member for Vancouver-East.
Mr. Speaker, it is a privilege and honour to stand in this new chamber today, the first member of the New Democratic Party to debate in the House of Commons in West Block. I think it's also fitting that in this new place, the first order of business is to debate a motion recognizing our past, our heritage, and who we are. The House of Commons, in many ways, is the physical embodiment of our democracy. Following the fire of 1916, the House of Commons in Centre Block heard parliamentarians debate and shape Canada for over 100 years. With the motion before us, we're teaching this new place those lessons, teaching this new institution how it is that we have come to be who and where we are today. M207 would designate May 5th as Dutch Heritage Day. Doing so would recognize the sacrifices made by Canadians in the liberation of the Netherlands and the past, present, and future contributions made to Canada by Canadians of Dutch heritage. I think that is a very fitting motion to be the first debated here, and one that I and my New Democratic Party colleagues fully support. I believe heritage motions present us with an opportunity to not just learn about our past, but to find ways to act on those lessons. It also provides us a chance to see what those connections look like today and what we can continue to learn from those nations and cultures. The bond that Canada and the Netherlands shares is a unique one, which will forever tie our two nations together. M207 would designate May 5th because it's its Liberation Day in the Netherlands. During World War II, from September 1944 to April 1945, the Netherlands were under Nazi occupation. Canadian forces led the Allies' effort to liberate the Dutch people. More than 7,600 Canadians gave their lives in that effort and are forever resting in war cemeteries across the Netherlands. On May 5, 1945, Royal Canadian Regiment General Charles Foulkes accepted the German surrender of the Netherlands. While the winter of 1945 was known as Hunger Winter and saw millions of Dutch people in suffering and starvation, the summer of 1945 was called the Canadian Summer. It was marked by weeks of parties, parades, and celebration. The efforts and sacrifices made by the Canadian military to liberate the Dutch people is something that neither country will ever forget. But learning this history also provides us with the opportunity to reflect on the work that still needs to be done to respect and to live up to the solemn promise we have made to all of our military veterans. My colleague, the member for Courtenay Alberni and the member for London Frencha have been tirelessly pushing this government to treat our veterans with the respect and dignity that they deserve. There is something both Liberal and Conservative governments can continue to fail on. I was proud to see that the member for Courtenay Alberni's motion to have lapsed Veterans Affairs Department funding reallocated and actually spent on veterans passed on November of 2018. It will result in hundreds of millions of funding actually being used for service provision. During World War II, Canada also provided refuge to the Dutch royal family. But we didn't simply provide a safe haven. In 1943, the maternity ward of the Ottawa Civic Hospital was briefly declared to be extraterritorial by the Canadian government, allowing Crown Princess Juliana's child, Princess Marguerite, to be born only a Dutch citizen. While we could just look back on this as a diplomatic gesture to foreign royalty, I believe it shows much more and provides us with a lesson that becomes more important each passing day. Across the Western world, immigration and especially refugee resettlement has become a very divisive debate. Some people, and even in this place, seek to misinform Canadians about refugees and label them as drains on our society that will have little to offer Canada. Some even call them illegal. The Dutch royal family shows us that refugees come from all walks of life, from the poor to royalty. When your family is in immediate danger, you may have no choice but to flee and seek asylum. as we reflect on how Canada can best contribute to finding solutions to the global refugee crisis that now sees over 65 million forcibly displaced persons globally, let us all remember Canada's humanitarian legacy and the lesson the Dutch royal family can teach us. Anyone can become a refugee. Canada can and must do better, not just in providing asylum, but showing refugees the respect and dignity that they deserve by ensuring that they have access to the services needed to get on their feet to thrive here. Our cousins, as the Dutch Prime Minister considered us in his historic address to the House of Commons in the fall, continue to innovate and make contributions to the world. According to the 2016 census, over 500,000 Canadians are of Dutch ethnic origin. 2006 figures, which include full or partial ancestry, put that number as high as 1 million. Many Canadians maintain strong ties to the Netherlands. For that reason, it makes sense to look to our Dutch neighbors to see what new lessons can be learned. Despite promising that 2015 would be the last election under first past the post, our Prime Minister abandoned that promise and refused to work with MPs on electoral reform. In a bizarre excuse for his failure, the Prime Minister suggested proportional representation could give fringe views the balance of power in our democracy. If only he were more aware of our Dutch counterparts. The 2017 Dutch elections show just the opposite. The Dutch PR system makes it difficult for a single party to obtain a majority mandate and forces parties to work together and compromise. Despite winning the second most seats in their 2017 election, no other party is willing to work with a party for freedom, a party considered by many as a far-right, anti-immigrant nationalist party. As a result, this extreme view holds no power and it is not supported by the majority of the Dutch people. The PR system also helps send more women to Parliament, with 36% of seats held by women. That's 10% higher than Canada. Making every vote count may well also improve voter turnout. In 2017, over 80% of Dutch voters cast a ballot, and turnout typical hovers in the 70% range. In 2015, saw Canada's highest turnout in over 20 years, but that was only 68.5%. Lastly, despite our Prime Minister's lofty rhetoric on the environment, we know much remains to be done to even come close to meeting our Paris targets. We also know buying a 65-year-old leaky pipeline doesn't help us hit those targets. But what we do know about are the ways to help. For example, we could be making investments in our communities to make our streets safer and more accommodating for cyclists and pedestrians. The Netherlands have long been famous for its embrace for urban cycling culture, and they've made significant progress in moving away from city planning around the car. This has made their streets safer, greener, and more pedestrian and bike-friendly. In 2016, my colleague, the member for Courtenay-Alberni, tabled Bill C-312, an act to establish a national cycling day, an act to establish a cycling strategy. His bill would see federal government work collaboratively across departments and with the provinces and territories to develop and implement a national framework for improving urban cycling infrastructure and programs across Canada. I hope that our parliamentarians can learn from our Dutch counterparts and better embrace urban cycling. Supporting Bill C-312 would be a great first step. Canadians can be very proud of our country's Dutch heritage and share history with the Netherlands. I encourage all Canadians to learn more about it. It is very clear to me that there are many valuable lessons we can learn from this heritage and our continued close relationship. We can learn from our past, we can learn from the present, and I have no doubt that there will be lessons that we can learn in the future as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very good.
Resuming debate, the honourable member for Peace River Westlock.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I've come from a long line of Dutch heritage, and one thing that I know about the Dutch is there's a saying that we have, it's wooden head,